Hey guys, welcome to my new video. Today we are going to solve validate subsequence coding problem. In this, the problem statement is basically that we need to validate whether the given sequence in the existing array is a subsequence of the original array or the first array provided as an input. Let's try to understand what exactly the problem here is. In this example, you can see that for the given original array there is also a second input, which is the sequence array. We need to validate whether the sequence array is a subsequence of the original array. Basically, the subsequence means it contains the list of integers, not necessarily in the same order, or not necessarily adjacent to each other, but in the same order as the original array. Let's say the sequence contains 1 6 minus 1 10, and the original array also has 1, and after 1 we have 6, and after 6 we have minus 1, and after minus 1 we have 10. And hence in this example we can say that the sequence array is a valid subsequence of the original array because it contains the integer in the same order as the original array, but not necessarily in the adjacent fashion, right? If you consider the second example, let's say that my original array is let's say original array is 1 2 3 5, and the sequence array is 1 2 3 5. It's the exact copy of original array. So in this case, do you say that the sequence array is a valid subsequence of original array? Of course, yes, because the condition to be a valid subsequent array is that the array should contain the integers in the same order as the original array. Like the order here does not differ at all, and since this is the exact copy of it, it's always a valid subsequence of the original array. And also we need to understand that the sequence array may or may not contain all the integers or characters from the original array, but whatever integers or characters it contains, these integers are present in the same order as the original array. So that's the problem statement here. So how to resolve this issue? So basically we'll consider an approach, okay, where we will traverse through the original array. Let's say we will have a index variable I, which is starting from 0 in the original array. Let me write I over here, and we'll also have the index variable j, which will be starting from index 0 in the subsequence array. So one way to solve this problem is that we will go through each and every element of the original array and compare each and every element in the original array with the element that is present in the jth position in the sequence array. If these two are equal, then we'll increment j by 1, and we'll continue with the regular iteration in the original array. Let me take a simple example here. Let's say the original array is 1 2 3 4 5, and the sequence array is 1 3 and 4. So the one way we can propose a solution here is that we will assign the index variable I to the first position of the original array, and index variable j to the first position in the sequence array. So in our condition, it could be, you can use either a while loop or a for loop. We will iterate the index variable I till you know uh, the end of the array, or till j is exhausted with the length of sequence array. So till I is while I is less than length of uh, the original array, we will iterate I by 1 in each iteration, and in each iteration we will check whether the index, or the the character or the integer in the ith position is equal to the integer in the jth position. So let me try to work it out using a proper example. I'll delete this. So in our first iteration, I is pointing to the first index in the array, and j is pointing to the first index in the sequence. So I is equal to 1, j is equal to 1, and since these two are equal, we'll increment j by 1. J will move to the next, which is pointing to 3. So again I will point to 2, and j will point to 3. Since these two are not equal, we will not increment j by 1, we will only increment I in this case. Yeah, I will point to 3 now, and j is still pointing to 3. Since these two are equal, we will increment j by 1, and j will now point to 4. I will increment by 1, which will point to 4. And since again I is equal to j, we will increment j by 1, which will go beyond this array size. And in our condition, we have mentioned earlier that if I is less than the size of this array, and j is less than the size of sequence array, we'll continue this iteration. Since j has reached the length of the array, we'll exit the loop, and we'll check if post exiting the loop whether j has actually reached the length of the subsequence or sequence array. If it is reached the length of the sequence array, it means that it has validated all the elements in the sequence array which are present in the same order as the original subarray, and hence will return true. If j is not equal to the length of the sequence array, then we will conclude that not all elements in the sequence array are part of the main array in the same order. So, hence we'll pass the flag as, or return flag as false in that case. So let's try to code this in our solution. We'll create a function which will receive two inputs. One is the array and the next is sequence, and we'll code this solution in our Python program. And in my case, I am using Jupyter Notebook for writing the code. You can use any IDE or editors of your choice. So let's try to define the function. We'll define is validate subsequence, and this function will receive two inputs. One is the original array, the next one is sequence array. And as we saw in our approach here, we will define two index variables pointing to the first index or the zeroth index of these two input arrays. So I'll just initialize these to 0, I equal to 0, j equal to 0, and instead of calculating the length of the array in each iteration of while loop, we will store the length of the original array and sequence array in two variables. Let me define them as array length as the length of the original or the first array, and sequence length as the length of the sequence array. Okay, so these two variables will contain the length of the original array and the length of the sequence array. Now, as a next step, you can either use a for loop or while loop. In this example, I'll use a while loop. Uh, in while loop, I'll put a condition while I is less than array length and j is less than sequence length. Till these two conditions are satisfied, I will move to the next condition. The next condition is that if the character or the integer at the ith position is equal to the character or integer in the jth position, then we will increment the j by 1. Otherwise, we will increment I every time, irrespective whether these two are equal or not. So we will say, we will put the condition as if array of I is equal to sequence of j. If array of I is equal to sequence of j, then we'll increment j by 1. Else, there is no need to put else condition because we are incrementing the index variable I anyways, right, irrespective if this condition satisfies or not. So we will increment I by 1, and as once this loop is executed, we'll come to know the value of j, right? Basically, you can return true if the value of j is equal to sequence length, and you can return false if value of j is not equal to sequence length. So if j is equal to sequence length, then we'll return true, else we'll return false. But you can also replace this whole 4 lines of code with one more single statement in Python. We'll see that next. Now what we'll do is we'll execute this function and we'll pass the input. We'll pass the same input as we have seen while explaining the example previously. Let's say that I'll pass 1 2 3 4 5 as my original input. 1 2 3 4 5, that's my array. It will be passed as array, and as subsequence I'll pass as 1 3 and 4. Now let's try to execute this. As you can see, it's returning true. Now we'll also consider the failure case. Let me copy this calling function again, and I'll pass 1 4 and 3. Instead of 1 3 and 4 in sequence, we'll pass 1 4 and 3. Now as you can see, it's returning false because 1 4 and 3, till 1 and 4 it's fine, they are present in the same order, but when it comes to 3 comes after 4, not I mean, in the sequence 3 comes after 4, but in our original array 3 comes before 4. So the sequence array should follow the same order as original array, right? So hence it's returning false. Now, in previously I was telling, instead of writing these 4 lines of code, we can actually replace this with a single line of code, right? In Python you can also return the comparison result of comparison as a returning variable. So let me comment out these four lines of code. You can just write one single statement: return j equal to sequence length. So what will this single statement do is that it will return the boolean expression or boolean result of this comparison statement, whether j is equal to sequence length. If it is equal to sequence length, then it will return true, otherwise it will return false. Let me try to execute this function again, and I'll pass the same input. There is some issue. As you can see, it's returning false, which should not be a case. Let us try to write this statement again. We'll come out of while loop. Now return sequence length equal to j. As you can see, earlier we were writing this statement inside this while loop, and hence it was giving the wrong result. But once we exit the while loop, then you should write the statement. So as you can see, we have replaced the four lines of code with a single line here, and which is much more convenient to read, and it makes the code look very compact as well. So in today's video we learned that what is the problem statement of validate subsequence problem, and we try to understand how to solve this issue using single iteration instead of using multiple while or for loops. And I hope this video is helpful for you to understand and resolve this problem. And please subscribe to my channel if not done, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.